Welcome to the Startempire Wire Founders Podcast, where we make entrepreneurial founders a top priority. Each episode features risk takers, business builders, community shapers, institutional and government supporters in our local startup ecosystem. Tune in weekly to hear all about what's happening with the movers and the shakers of Southern California's Inland Empire and beyond. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Founders Podcast. Here at the Founders Podcast, we're building a who's who directory of, all the entrepreneurs, the movers, the shakers, people here in the Inland Empire first who are doing things with startups and startup ecosystem. And today we're with Val Salomaki. Did I say that right?
That's correct.
Awesome. And Val Salomaki is he's got several roles, but currently one of the roles that he's operating in as CEO. You're CEO of Edge Sound Research. So we're going to get in a little bit in depth to Edge Sound Research, and want you to tell the audience about yourself and who you are. Where did you grow up? How'd you get involved with Edge Sound Research? Were you always an entrepreneur? Tell us all a little bit about that, Val.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So my background really actually begins, I'm a first generation immigrant from Finland. My family moved from Finland when I was really young. We've lived everywhere from the Bay Area to Boston to San Diego area. So I've been all around the world pretty much throughout my entire life. And entrepreneurship really became a priority for me after high school, because for high school it's all about sports, and I wanted some kind of competitive nature and continue that competitive nature. And that transitioned into entrepreneurship for me. So I was trying and making a bunch of different companies throughout my undergraduate degree. I worked in some corporate America. From there, it transitioned to full-time into entrepreneurship. But the origins of actually how that led to Edge Sound Research is during my MBA, studying information systems and marketing strategy, more specifically looking at emerging technologies and their application when it comes to different verticals and consumer adoption. I actually met my co-founder, Ethan Castro, at that time, who was in the PhD department at UC Riverside. And we were working on different music projects together, working with local artists. And he actually asked me to help him a little bit with his PhD research to get him a grant. And that grant was based off of market research on the viability of feeling sound, but I didn't really necessarily understand what that meant. So I asked my co-founder Ethan to make a little demo for me. Once he showed that demo, I was obsessed with what this technology can be and the potential of it, and that really led for me to kind of go all in, quit my day job, put my consulting company as the secondary priority, and put all my efforts into Edge Sound Research.
It's an awesome story, and I just want to know more. Like, this is something cool, pretty cutting edge, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I know. You are very entrepreneurial, but who was young Val? Were you guys moving around because of military? What is it?
Yeah, so we moved around quite a bit due to my dad's work. So my dad worked in various different tech companies and startup companies. So my curiosity around entrepreneurship actually really originated when I was in third grade. I was selling quarters. So back then, how every quarter has a different state. So what I would do is I would flip quarters with other people for either their lunch or bigger amounts of money, because I started understanding the value and the transition and arbitrage within that. And that curiosity kind of propelled all the way through my middle school, high school. I was always flipping objects, trying to make money, like trading video games. When I had something I wanted to get, I understood that there's a value trade you can get to that point. And that curiosity kind of then became full-fledged once I was able to get some actual experience and education behind that. That's really what propelled me forward into my entrepreneurial career.
Oh, that's cool. All right, so I first saw the media you were putting out with what's the name of the other company you were doing?
Free Logic.
Green Logic? No.
Free Logic.
Free Logic Media. Okay. Yeah. So I saw the media you were putting out, and so I figured let me just reach out to a guy, see what he's doing, and so finally we got you on the podcast here. So tell us a little bit about that journey were you in your MBA at the time, or like where did you start Free Logic, and then how did you get into the Edge Sound research?
Absolutely. So my journey with Free Logic actually started from my second study abroad during my undergraduate. So I had opportunity to study abroad both in Hong Kong as well as in Italy. And one unique aspect that I learned is in Hong Kong and in Asia, they tend to be far ahead when it comes to technology application for things like payment processing, contactless payment. All these things are already happening. Mobile payments were happening way in advance over in Asia. And then when I was in Italy, I started understanding brand perception and the value of customer service, because that was so dominant there. But in Italy, they didn't really have this technology as well. And then when I came back to the United States, I was really looking at there's a huge gap between small businesses, nonprofits, startups, early stage, and the integration of technology to really propel them forward. So that led me to start Free Logic and kind of fill that void, fill that gap. And I was able to start building on our team. And throughout that time, we took on a bunch of different consulting projects. But one of the biggest kind of creative projects we wanted to do was a show called Acoustic Haven. So we actually partnered with Ethan Castro, my co-founder, Edge Sound Research, with his recording label called Edge Original Incorporated. And he was handling all the music side for the artists, and I was handling all the production and the marketing for these artists. And we created kind of a launch pad where you can do a 30-minute full production set, get that sent out to different record labels as well as different bars and clubs to get gigs. It actually led to a couple local UC Riverside artists to actually get signed on by big labels like Interscope Records. So we realized that there was a lot of momentum there. And then that led to my obviously passion with Sound Research through Ethan's research and getting to know Ethan very well to become my co-founder of that company.
That's cool. So you and Ethan connected really well on, what you're doing with Edge Sound Research. Why did you decide to partner up?
Yeah, so the main reason why we decided to partner up is we're perfect opposite sides when it comes to like the spectrum of building a business, right? So the way that Ethan thinks is the origins of our technology come from his PhD research. So it's very heavy research. You have to have kind of a hacker mentality. You have to really try crazy stuff that's never existed. My mindset's all about value creation. So if you create something, that's cool, but a technology doesn't sell itself. What is the value to the end user? How do you create more value to the end user? And then how do you expand your vision, not just based off a narrow scope of, for example, Ethan was building this technology for recording studios. I was immediately thinking on more the consumption side, sports stadiums, video gaming, movie theaters, cars. And that's kind of the balance that we have is creation versus market viability. And then that knowledge gap between us two is the kind of the unique secret sauce of why we've been able to get so far so quickly.
That's great. Okay, so go into the details of what Edge Sound Research is. What are those needs that you actually meet, and why is it so unique?
Yeah, absolutely. So the part that's pretty crazy about what we're doing at Edge Sound Research is we're looking at sound reproduction from its origins. So sound reproduction, as everybody knows it, as a traditional loudspeaker, has been around for over a century. And that's a speaker cone that vibrates, push sound at air pressure, and that's how you hear sound. Our entire kind of thesis of our company is that you should not look at audio as sound that you hear. You should look at audio as information. And then the question changes, how do you pass as much information to somebody? Because naturally, if you pass more information to somebody, it's going to sound better, it's going to be more immersive, and it's going to really solve a lot of the fundamental problems where speakers can't solve. You can't add more speakers to an environment to make it sound better. It just gets louder and it hurts your ears. So we figured out that if you create sound systems via vibration and actually can turn any object, flooring, walls, furniture, a couch, into the sound source and emanate the sound from that object, and you touch that object, not only are you hearing the acoustics of that sound through the vibration, what you audibly can hear from a speaker, but you can now also feel the entire range of the sound. And that combination together is what makes sound actually feel realistic, like in the real world and matching a real world experience to a virtual world, but it allows you to connect more accurately to a source. So a good example of that is like a recording studio. Every recording studio you go into is going to sound slightly different. So the audio engineer is going to get different audio every single recording studio they're at. So how do you mix or master a final song that sounds then good on every other device? Well, you have to then validate it on every single other device, every other speaker. But if you're getting that information directly to your body, the environment no longer is the restricting factor. Now you know exactly what's happening in that mixing, mastering of that music, and how you reproduce that song is going to sound fantastic now on every other device, because it's the clarity of the frequency, not just the reliance on does it sound good with your ears, which is a very bad medium of understanding good sound.
Well, you're very, I'm going to tell you that, how would you communicate this? Because, like, I get it. I understand it. However, feelings are subjective to a degree, right? Mm-hmm. So there's got to be a lot of variables that you guys are having to overcome while you're creating this. What would you say are some of those things how are you overcoming those variables?
Yeah, so a lot of this has to do with the deep tech research that we're doing. So when it comes to the concept of feeling sound, exactly what you brought up, there's a lot of perceptual things. So the perception of feeling sound or the perception of hearing sound is something that is very difficult. So our entire research is around how do you make the sound something called master grade. Master grade meaning is that it's on a flat line, so it's consistent frequency from the start to the end. There's no big peaks, there's no big drop-off points. It doesn't sound too bass heavy, it doesn't sound too high frequency. And if you can design that frequency and relay that over and over again, that's more, it goes more into the software or technology, where we can actually baseline our device. If you attach it to a table, every material emanates sound slightly differently, but our software can tune that material so it's always hitting that same flat response curve. So now your perception of the sound is always going to be consistent. So that's kind of the variables around very heavy deep tech research, and then having an engineering team that is not just looking at sound in the pure acoustics, but really looking at more of the physics side of materials emanating sound, and what does that mean?
All right, so I grew up in the dirty South, Houston, Texas. We were swanging and banging. The Inland Empire startup ecosystem industry is tremendously fragmented. A few top-tier hubs, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and San Diego, are well covered by media, events, and data platforms. Finding reliable information relevant to startups or the tech industry in the Inland Empire is extremely difficult. As a result, startups can't scale fast enough. Investors are having a hard time finding the right deals, and corporates can't find the right companies to partner with for their innovation activities. Startempire Wire, the leading Inland Empire startup publication, is providing the Inland Empire startup ecosystem with the most accurate, engaging business and financial data, events, and news. Our reach of entrepreneurs, C-level executives, angels, VC investors, startup employees, key management at innovative corporates, and big tech is the solution for your B2B or B2C needs. As we build out our platform, we're looking for partners. This is your opportunity to get in on the ground level. If you're looking to align yourself with the local and growing startup and tech ecosystem of the Inland Empire, we have created the platform to get your name noticed and the opportunity for you to grow the recognition of your brand. Contact us today for availability and pricing options. We look forward to our partnership with you. My brother had his car with like 16-inch subwoofers, 8-inch tweeters, everything. I got into his car, we're listening to hip hop, and I feel it in my chest. Is that the same experience?
Slightly. So the best way to kind of put that is that's pure air pressure. So what you're really feeling is not necessarily the sound frequency. You are, to a certain extent, you're really feeling the air pressure being pushed out from these big subs because they're moving air consistently in that car, and it's a tight space and it's enclosed. So yeah, you're feeling it. But the question comes down to, could you even hear the lyrics of the music? Probably not, because what's happening is that low frequency of the sub is overriding all the other information. So you're feeling this intensity, but it's the same intensity every time. So the question comes down to, what if you could control that vibration to actually make it enjoyable, not take away from the other frequencies, so I'll understand everything else happening in the song, and you intensify that 10 times with less energy? That's kind of the question of feeling sound. Is technically, yeah, you go in a club or in a car, yeah, you're feeling sound, but to the essence of the control of that, it's really not the purity of feeling sound. You're feeling that air pressure in that space of that sound.
So you're saying what you guys are able to do is kind of bring a little bit of that experience, like you're in this major, like, concert or something, like right by the subwoofer, but you also make it clear, and make it, enjoyable. You can still hear the music, but you feel it all the way through you.
Absolutely. And that's one of the big things, is how to make it where the loudest decibel level, and decibels is how loud it's getting, we can only get to 90 decibels. And decibels, if you get over that, you're going to start getting hearing loss. So while you can get this intense experience, you're probably at like 120, 130 decibels.
Right.
So you're actually blowing out your ears. You're reducing the ability to enjoy that music for the long term, versus us. You can enjoy ours for 8 hours straight, full intensity. It's blowing your mind, and you get zero hearing loss from it. And that information's super clear, and you understand all the nuances of the music at the same time. So that's kind of the differential side of looking at traditional speakers versus like what we're now introducing into the market.
So why did Ethan go into this research?
Yeah, so the origins of our entire company really starts with Ethan actually being born hard of hearing. So he was hard of hearing at a young age, but he became a professional audio engineer and a composer. And the only way he was able to do that was actually putting his hand on speakers, hugging subwoofers. And what he was realizing is that he thought he was hearing the sound, but he was realizing, combining the feeling sense with his audible sense, he was understanding that information super clear. So that allowed him to actually have a competitive advantage for mixing and mastering things like vocals, because he could touch a speaker and feel the muddiness of a mix for like a song, and be able to detect right away, like, no, that was mixed poorly, that doesn't come out really clean. Right. And because of that, that's what led to his PhD research, to understand his relationships with sound and the perception of information via vibration.
So there's some sounds that make us, feel rapturous joy, and some sounds that make us cringe. Like, I absolutely hate sounds of nails on a chalkboard. What are you saying, that what you guys are doing is creating something that can create realistic experiences for any range of those type of sounds?
Yeah, so what we're really unlocking, and this goes into another problem with sound reproduction, is there's actually 3 different types of audio. You have audible audio that everybody knows, we're used to just hearing sound. But then there's haptic audio, which is recreating kind of like pressure and like feeling environments. And then there's tactile audio, which is feeling that exact audible range, but through your body, and that's tactile audio. So what we're able to do is reproduce all 3 of those in the entire full range. And by combining those together, now you can actually recreate, like, what does it feel like someone's scratching down a chalkboard? Because there's, not only is it that annoying frequency, but you can actually feel some of that vibration of that chalkboard very subtly, but that information's
that information is coming.
Exactly, that's happening.
Yeah, man, that's the worst sound ever. I don't know.
I mean, if I want to recreate it. So.
yeah, right. So, all right, so from the value proposition of what you guys are doing, you saw stadiums, you saw theaters. Tell me what other parts will be valuable for this experience. What else?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when you look at audio across the board in a multitude of different areas, there's so many flaws due to existing methods, and we're looking at the problems. One of the big ones actually is automotive. So within automotive, you're already in a controlled environment, but infotainment now is becoming a huge value gain for a car company. And they're also trying to reduce the weight of the car. So what if you just take out the speakers that they have, the subs that they have, make each seat its sound system, and have these little small tweeters that are pushing some of the higher frequencies in? You can now have a super immersive sound experience within a car, but then personalize the experience for the driver versus the passengers, so that if the kids in the back want to really bump their music, but you driving in the front want to just be focused on driving, everybody can now have a personalized sound experience within the same space, but really engage with that sound. So automotive is massive. Where we see things that get really interesting is into gaming, because in the gaming environment, visual is moving so quickly forward. Doesn't mean that games are getting more immersive, right? Like the new Call of Duty, for example, Modern Warfare 2, graphics are getting fantastic, but the essence to make it feel realistic, what if you're playing in a dune map, and within that dune, you're running across the sand, and it feels like every single step you're taking on the sand feels like if you're walking on sand.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then there's a wind gust, and you can feel the sand particles across your back, plus hearing the wind. Those are the kind of areas where we can start playing around with, because the sensation of like sand particles is really just a frequency. And that frequency
Oh,
can now be
man.
reproduced through the haptic lens of our technology. The audible can create the wind gust and environmental design. And that with a visual representation is going to start tricking your brain that it's actually happening. So that's where we're really excited for the long term.
Tell us about the haptic lens. What is that?
Yeah, so right now, even like in haptic technology, you're actually really restricted in the frequencies that you can create haptics. Right now, haptics are happening between about 40 hertz and 140 hertz. That's kind of what they play around with. Yeah. You can only do very specific types of sound reproduction out of that. Our technology allows you to go from 7 hertz to 5,000 hertz. So now you can have high frequencies doing very subtle frequency kind of feeling that are like sharper, and then you can have low frequencies create like a wavelength. So let's say you like jump into water. Well, that frequency like is you feel the pressure of going into water, and it goes boom, and that's audible, that's haptic, and that's tactile. You combine it together, now you can make it when you jump into water in a video game feel like you just jumped into water. That's very doable through this technology.
So the application of this is probably, you know, really great as well, because the metaverse is supposedly just coming to take over. What about that? What tell us.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The metaverse, it's kind of the same kind of thesis we have with gaming, and I would actually argue that I think gaming is the evolution into the metaverse, and that's why I'm really obsessed with the concept of gaming, because like something like Fortnite is really showing what's possible in the idea like a metaverse. And the aspect there is everything about metaverse right now is visual. Everybody's talking about VR goggles, AR, all this kind of stuff, characters, but how can you say that it's going to be a new world unless it feels like a new world? And the only way to reproduce that is by actually taking in sound design. So if you're looking at like what investments Meta is doing right now, they're investing super heavily into haptics. And a lot of companies are investing in haptics, but they're doing different haptics than we are. They're doing based off of like gloves and like feeling like you're picking up a ball, but they can't reproduce the sound design layers of what is the environment happening around you. And that's actually the most important piece to make something feel realistic. So for essence into that, it's like, the way we see it, like a Ready Player One suit. You can actually. Yeah,
no, I was going to bring that up too. Exactly. Yeah,
that's a very feasible thing. Realistically, with something like our technology, because we just need some kind of material to resonate, to vibrate, and then we can pass that information through that, which is now tricking your brain that those moments are actually happening, directly correlated to what is happening in the visuals. So there's a lot of exciting things we're right now testing out and playing around with things like Unreal Engine and combining visuals and audio together to really show and really kind of push the boundaries, because prior to somebody trying our technology, their scope of what is possible and what you can create is limited based off what exists today. And that actually limits the scope of brand new creation and thinking of new environments and new designs in games and new design in the metaverse, because they're playing based off the rules of existing physics of a sound system until we get introduced and a lot of people know about it. Every single time we show this to an AR or a VR developer, they're like, oh crap, I can now do this. I could never have done that before. And that's the part that we're really excited about.
So what are the limitations? Can you make a person feel cold or heat?
That could be done through other mediums, but I mean, definitely would be an important piece to add that as well, right? Like the more senses that are telling you certain types of information, the better. I think the central focus for us, at least in the short and midterm, is purely around sound design. But going into further from there, our entire vision statement is to fundamentally change how we perceive reality. We start with audio today, but it doesn't mean it has to end with audio. Vibration is actually how you see. Vibration is how you taste. Vibration is how you smell. Everything's vibration. So if you control the methodology of vibration, you can control how somebody is perceiving that reality.
Well, I mean, there's string theory as well, you know, that everything is a sound, you know, like every atom. You know, we're moving bits out all day long. You know, as far as, you know, online and, you know, but nobody's in the real world, you know, changing atoms and things like that, right? So you guys are kind of crossover of atoms and bits.
To an extent, yeah. I mean, I think that goes into a lot of philosophy questions.
I know.
It goes pretty deep. I mean,
it gets a little deep, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's super fascinating too, because it goes into a lot of wormholes around the research that we're trying to do and understand perception, because perceptual studies, right, are difficult, especially if there's no standards. So what we're doing today, there is no standard metric to validate perception of feeling.
And
that's what we're trying to map out for the first time is
can you make it objective, right?
Exactly. That's very important for our company, and that's why we really called ourselves Edge Sound Research, not just Edge Sound.
I like it.
Company. The research is a very vital piece of the technology we're building.
So you guys are establishing baselines for these things across the board as you go as well?
Yeah, so the plan right now is, as my co-founder Ethan completes his PhD, is to really go out there and publish more work, publish more research, work with leading researchers around the United States and around the world to really show in different avenues. Because, for example, you're asking about where can you use this technology today? I was only talking about entertainment. I wasn't talking medical. I wasn't talking about agriculture. That's right. I'm not talking about manufacturing. I'm not talking about furniture creation. I'm not talking about infrastructure as in real estate. There's a multitude of verticals we can go into. Entertainment we saw as a good starting point, but it broadens across the board in a lot of different verticals.
Okay, so this may go a little bit deeper into as well, to maybe some theory. I've heard that people theorize that the pyramids were built with sound. So have you ever heard that?
I have not heard that. That sounds absolutely wild.
So yeah, you should look it up. It's some theories out there where and there's this other spot where a guy moved these large blocks using sound, and you can just look up sound, vibrational manipulation of environments. It's fascinating. Mm-hmm. And maybe Ethan knows something about it. So you guys may move into that region maybe one day. That'd be cool to see. I mean, because okay, levitational sound. Mm-hmm. You know about that, right?
Yep.
Where you can levitate like a little small thing with sound.
We've actually done a test where we put I believe it was 20,000 watts or over 10,000 watts of sound power through a chair, through excitation, to vibrate the material, and you actually felt like you were levitating. You didn't feel the chair.
Dude, I'm a tinkerer. Okay, so I'm a tinkerer. So I tinker with microcontrollers, Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and things like that. And there is a Instructable online where you can build a levitational cone with speakers, and you can put a piece of pocket lint on top of the sound.
Yep.
Or you could put a drop of water on top of the sound.
And it floats, yeah.
And it floats. Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. I'm like, this thing can go really deep. So that's cool. Mm-hmm. Is there anyone else out there doing similar things to what you're doing?
So the part that's interesting about our research is that there's been companies that have been playing around with obviously tactile audio. So there's companies such as Subpack, Woozer, Flex Sound, these companies that have been playing around with feeling sound, but they can only do from 10 hertz to 200 hertz. So it's just the sub ranges. And then there's companies doing haptics, obviously, like what you're talking about goes into ultrasonic haptics. So there's a company called Emerge where it's a little platform you can put your hand above and you can feel all the sound design of something. But you have to design for these like a customized experience. We're the first company ever to create sound reproduction, meaning the whole range of sound via vibration, where now you can do audible, tactile, haptic, all in one singular system. And the beauty of it is you don't have to make a separate audio channel for haptics, audio channel for tactile. You just play Spotify, it creates the experience. So you don't have to actually design anything new. But then once you start designing something new, that starts going into the crazy stuff we were talking about earlier for video games. So really getting creative with it.
That's freaking amazing. Okay, so I know when you start up, you gotta focus really, on maybe one or two products. What are your products currently that you guys are working on? Because I know you're working on something.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our first consumer product. We're looking to launch a small batch of it next year in 2023. That was our priority first, but we actually decided to pivot slightly and make that a secondary focus. Because what we realized is that it's a lot easier to get this directly into venues. And the reason why is that we got to educate the mass market anyways on this technology. I can't just start selling you a consumer product if you've never tried this before. How do you know it's different? How do you know what the experience is like? It's a tricky mix of market education. So what we realized is that we can sell more expensive and more higher quality products to sports stadiums, bars and clubs, and recording
Yes.
studios. And it's the same SKU, or it's the same product really, that's on the consumer side, but the difference is power output and the amplification power, and as well as the DSP processing. So customizing the ability for our software. And as we do that more and more people are going to be educated on this technology. So instead of us having to advertise to buy it in the consumer market, people are going to naturally want to buy it because they're going to understand that difference naturally from going to a sports game or going to a concert or going to a recording studio. They're going to naturally be like, oh crap, there's something different. Now that's how I want it. That's how Adobe did it. That's how Bose did it. How audio has evolved century after century.
So you're going to the masses first through larger venues. Tell us about like your technology development, and how is that being developed?
Yeah, so all the technology is being developed by our engineering team here in Riverside, actually. So we have a team of software engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical, industrial engineers, and we right now are 3D printing all our products. And the reason why we 3D print them is because it allows us to change, configure, understand, create feedback loops. So we're not stuck on a singular SKU, but we're right now getting to the point that we're almost ready to start tooling, start doing injection molding, going overseas and start creating the one SKU of our device, the more of the hardware side, because our technology is software and hardware. The hardware is something we're agnostic to. We're making it today because it just doesn't exist. So we just want to make one SKU, make that across the board, and we can work with other partners to make the hardware. The software is the part what matters to us, and how we deploy that within DSPs and amps, and making that part in-house is the tricky part to make sure.
Wait, what's a DSP?
DSP is digital signal processing. So it's about how you're passing that information and adjusting and tuning it so it comes out in a certain processing. Because since we're passing sound through vibration, we got to optimize all those sound frequencies into vibration that then passes it to whatever material it's passing that vibration through. Okay.
I'm a little bit of a techie, so I sometimes I need a little bit of the definition so I can kind of understand it better. All right, so cool. So you guys you've done some stuff with Techstars. Tell us about that. Tell us about the Techstars, the Minnesota Twins, all of that. Let's hear about some of your successes.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had the opportunity to participate in the Techstars Accelerated, the Minnesota Twins one. It was their first cohort out of Minneapolis. So I was in Minneapolis from November to February. So November 2021 to February 2022. And that was a great opportunity for us to really test our assumptions. So as I stated, we were first kind of going in with this consumer product. But thanks to that Techstars program, we got access to the Minnesota Twins and other sports teams. And was able to validate, like, okay, actually, no, there's a huge need in sports stadiums. They're all trying in the stadium because they're all trying to figure out fan engagement. So we were able to build a really strong network of folks in the professional sports space, live event space, meet a bunch of amazing both investors, strategic partners, and now we have a very strong advisory team thanks to the connections from Techstars.
Man, that's sick. So how did you guys demo it when you were there? I saw like a video.
Yeah. So where we're at right now is we going into the Techstars program, we had a prototype, but it wasn't really ready for prime time yet. By the end of the program, we just finalized kind of our product. We had a demo day, which is when you present to a room of 300 guests. And at that demo day, we actually brought our CES experience. So our CES experience was this lounge seating area. And we brought that actually to Minneapolis to show at demo day. And showing that experience actually landed us our first contract deal with the Minnesota Twins. So out of the entire cohort for that accelerator, we're the only company out of 10 that actually got a paid contract with the Minnesota Twins after the program.
Bravo, man. All right, so what about the growth? What have been some of the growing pains you guys been going through? How long has it been again? Has it been like 12 months, or how long have you guys been doing this?
Yeah, so we started the company in November of 2019.
2019.
So we've been going on for a while. So, I mean, the trickiest part was we were building a hardware embedded system throughout the pandemic, throughout the lockdown. So we had to actually work virtually. So the way we had to do that was one person would engineer one part, ship it to another engineer. They would fill out one part, ship it to another engineer. They would do one part. And none of us actually experienced it for a year and a half. We were just building it, expecting it to work. It did work. There's a lot of lessons learned from that. But that was a huge growing pain, is obviously building a brand new technology. There's so much research and development, so many things that go wrong. It's very hard to also on my end as the CEO pitch the vision when I haven't tried the technology yet. It's one thing to kind of fine tune the messaging, get the customers, get everybody excited about something that we haven't even built yet, and it might work, it might not work. Luckily it did. Luckily my co-founder promised what he promised actually became a reality, but that's a lot of faith that our team all had to have together of we're going to dedicate a couple years, nobody's going to take any salary, let's build this, and we got to hope it works, because if it doesn't work, this company's dead right here.
No, that's a a startup experience, man. You guys are jumping in feet first, and you got skin in the game, which is freaking awesome. All right, so the growth pains. Tell us about your current needs, like where you at. What's the stage you're at right now, and then what are some of the current needs of your startup? How are you trying to fulfill those?
Yeah, absolutely. So where we at right now as a startup is we're finally starting to get into sales mode. So we're now rolling out sales directly into these stadiums. So we really kind of fine tune our B2B pro venue system of our ResNext technology. So that's awesome. But right now, the main focus there is we're closing out a pre-seed round. So we still have about 185,000 left in allocation. We're really working hard with our investors to close that remaining allocation, get the capital necessary so we can have a year of operational capital to really execute on our game plan. But the other kind of growing pain obviously is getting a bigger space. So we're right now looking at moving our facilities from Riverside Studios, where we've been based out of for the last couple of years, and moving into our own dedicated space so we can really build on our capacity for product development. And really
still here in Riverside somewhere.
Absolutely. Still staying in Riverside. We want to really establish our footprint here in Riverside. Been excited to be here. Love the community here. And there's amazing talent from UC Riverside. So pulling engineers, no problem.
Okay, so tell us. You said the pre-seed round right now you guys are going for got 180K left.
So we up to date we've raised throughout the Techstars program $310,000 total up to date, and then currently we're raising a $500,000 round. We had investments already from Sunstone Management, Current Venture Group, a couple angels, and then we currently have a syndication with another fund. But we have about 180K left in our allocation. Looking to close that here in the next couple weeks so that our focus can go from fundraising to execution mode. Which
execution, I know. Okay, so do you guys have any patents right now?
So we have a utility patent that's been filed. So that's the original kind of core part of our technology. That was a licensing agreement with UC Riverside, since we invented the technology at UC Riverside. But our big hopes, and another reason why we call ourselves Edge Sound Research, is as we keep progressing, there should be a lot of more IP that we start building out from our learnings of deploying this technology out in the market.
I know I talked to some investors, and the one thing that gets them, and especially the ones that I've talked to, they said they just want to see that you have patents, and number two, you got to have a defensible business model, and they're ready to maybe throw down. So hey, if you're listening to this interview, we got a startup right here, right now, who will need some funds. All right, so tell us the short-term goals of your startup, like for the next 2 months. What are you trying to do? Top two short-term goals.
Top two short-term goals is to get 2 sales in sports stadiums, 2 sales in recording studios, and 2 sales with live event venues, to build out very powerful case studies so I can start building out a repeatable sales process before CES, because CES last year was amazing for us. So this year we actually have a product we can sell. So last year was all about engagement.
It was just a demo,
now this year it's all about closing those sales. So we want to make sure we're ready for prime time heading into 2023.
All right, man. I don't know if I want to go to CES. I've been thinking about heading there, but maybe I will. All right, so give us your long-term goals, future goals. And we usually do 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years. Where do you see Edge Sound Research in those 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years?
Absolutely. So our goal in the next 3 years is to start introducing this into the consumer market. So right now, the next 3 years is really building out that market education and getting it into the consumer market. And one of the biggest consumer markets I want to really get into is automotive. That's automotive. That's a massive market that I really want to get into. When it comes to our kind of 5-year goals, our 5-year goals is to actually establish within our company a dedicated team for the different verticals we're targeting. So a team for automotive, a team for gaming, a team for sports stadiums, because the learnings from each of them can create new products and services within each of those spaces. So that's my goal for 5 years, is getting to the point that we have an operation that can self-serve the different verticals we're targeting, and we're not spread too thin for our company's growth. And our goal for 10 years is that we're seen as the main company in audio. We're up there when it comes to the big four companies. Well, there's really big three. So you got your Sonys, your Boses, and your Harman. And Harman's owned by Samsung. And that pretty much dominates the entire audio industry. You still do have Klipsch in the mix, and they're known for more the premium end home entertainment systems and lifestyle brand.
Right.
Those companies, I want to make sure that Edge Sound Research is as known equally to those companies in the market.
I want an Edge Sound Research audio entertainment system in my home one of these days. All right, so cool. Val, tell us where people can find you, find information about Edge Sound Research, all of the above, maybe even experience it. Where can they, come and experience all of the above?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So our company's website is edgesoundresearch.com. You can go on there. We're actually right now doing a big update to really make it more talking to this B2B sector that we're kind of building our technology, but you can actually even pre-order one of our consumer Resonex units only for $50 right now.
Nice.
Put yourself on the wait list before we actually start the sales of that officially. You can contact me on LinkedIn anytime. My LinkedIn is just Val Salomaki. Full name is Valtteri Salomaki, but you can find me just through Val Salomaki. When it comes to actually experiencing this technology, right now we're looking at deploying it at a couple places in Los Angeles that are more public, that people can walk in. But right now we're also looking at building out a mini demo experience center here in Riverside to make it a lot more easy for people to come. And you can also experience it at any event that we're going to be hosting. For example, at Excite for Founders Night, any kind of event that is in the local market, we're going to make sure we can bring our technology in and really show it to the local community.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you come in October 6th, Founders Night, they'll be there. We'll be posting this interview on Tuesday coming up. So that's freaking awesome, man. Anything else you want to add to it?
I think the biggest kind of thing I want to just add to this is that if anybody out there has a wild idea and you don't know where to get started, step one is just get started on it. You just got to take a step forward and then start building it out. I mean, that's how we got to where we're at today with Edge Sound Research, and learn to ask for help and work with your community, because the community is really what gets it to the end goal and keeps pushing you forward. So appreciate you putting on this podcast as well.
Dude, thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Finally coming on. We got you. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching the Founders Podcast. Remember, we publish these podcasts every Tuesday and Thursday of the week. You can check them out on YouTube and on every major podcast platform. Val, thank you for coming on to the Founders Podcast. We'll see you at Founders Night. Ladies and gentlemen, hope to see you at Founders Night, October 6th, downtown Riverside at Riverside Excite, 3600 Lime Street. We will see you guys soon, and peace out.